Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Friday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and I'm sorry I wasn't back yesterday to record a video because, boy, would that have been a fun one. I'm actually glad I wasn't because I would have been so angry about what happened on Wednesday night, but I'm going to talk about that today. I'm a little bit cooler about it since the Mets ended up winning last night by the skin of their teeth. We're going to talk about the last two games in Atlanta, wrap up that series, and do a little preview of the upcoming series with the Kansas City Royals. All season long, I've been doing for most of the season, I've been doing a little tally that I'm calling game balls and goats, and I'm just basically handing out game balls to the best player of the game, and in some cases more than one player gets a game ball, and goats for the worst player of the game, or basically the MVP, least VP, or LVP. And it had been a while since I had to mention Mickey Callaway in any of those conversations. But Wednesday night certainly thrust himself right back into the mix for GOAT. The decision to pull Steven Matz, despite Mickey believing that 100 times out of 100 is the right decision, is 1,000,000% the wrong decision. It was the wrong decision at the time. It was the wrong decision when it backfired. It would have been the wrong decision even if Seth Lugo had come out and been firing on all cylinders like he normally does. But in the moment, the only thing I could think of, not unlike everybody else, Christ, Matz must be hurt. 79 pitches through 6 innings. I mean, it's a day late to talk about this stuff, but I can't possibly let it go. Fortunately, I don't have to spew too much about it, because instead I'm going to suggest that you go to Mets blog and you read the story that Matt Abriano wrote yesterday morning, where he lays out the 4 reasons why this was a terrible, terrible move. And it's so perfectly explained in that article, I don't need to say anything about it. Just go read the piece that Matt Abriano wrote, and it nails it, 100%. The thing that concerns me the most is that Mickey Callaway refuses to admit that he made a terrible mistake. And make no mistake about it, it was a terrible mistake. It was the reason the Mets more than likely lost that game. So, egregious though it may have been, the Mets did lose, and they had to come out yesterday and really, really make a statement to avoid getting swept by the Braves. And that's exactly what the Mets did on the offensive side of the ball. Marcus Stroman pitched well, not particularly deep. I'm a little bit concerned in his 3 starts how he is throwing a ton of pitches. That's fine. I mean, it isn't like Jason Vargas was going 8 innings every time he was taking the mound, but you're effectively getting the same level of performance for the most part as the Mets got out of Jason Vargas before Stroman took his place. So, but Stroman was good enough last night for sure. He kept the Braves off the board, allowed 1 or 2 earned runs, I think, on the night. It wasn't until the bullpen got involved that the game got really tight, and that was a little bit scary. Drew Gagnon was really good on Tuesday night in relief, and then he was really horrible last night. So go figure. You can't sort of figure this stuff out. It's like one day they're good, one day they're bad, and it doesn't seem to be changing with the bullpen. But I don't want to pick on negatives because there were a lot of positives in this Braves series to touch on. The Mets offense, particularly 3 players, Ahmed Rosario being at the top of that list. Boy, what a series he had. 5 hits last night. Was a home run shy of the cycle. Just had an unbelievable night last night. Drove the ball out of the leadoff spot. He has his batting average up to 289 right now. So for all of you dummies who were, quote, the give up on Ahmed Rosario, he's a bust people, where you at? Just curious. Anyone think we should give up on Ahmed Rosario, the 23-year-old shortstop who's growing into the player that we all expected him to be? Didn't think so. Preaching patience is a big thing because you have to be patient with a lot of these younger kids. They can't all come up and be Ronald Acuna Jr. where they just look like seasoned veterans, or Juan Soto. Sometimes you got to wait and let them develop. And sometimes when you do, you're rewarded. Ahmed Rosario looks like he's going to fall into that latter category. So kudos to Ahmed. He was terrific this series. Pete Alonso also had a pretty good series. Drove in runs in the second game, but more importantly, last night he had 6 RBIs. His first career 5-hit game, including a near duplicate of his dead center field home run that he hit at SunTrust Park earlier this season, splashing down into the fountain that they have out there that no one knew of before this season when Pete Alonso hit the ball out there. So Pete had a great night last night, and JD Davis has to be talked about as well, because he's continuing to be one of the most effective offensive players that the Mets put up to the plate. Harkening back to Wednesday with the whole double switch Seth Lugo, Mickey Callaway blunder, to me that was the biggest blunder of them all. That you pull out, excuse me, a guy who's basically been your best hitter for the last month. You pull him out in the 6th inning in a 1-run game. I mean, that's the real asinine nature of what happened with that double switch. Just completely insane. But the good news is the Mets end up taking one of the 3 games as opposed to being swept. The really good news is that the Mets absolutely could have taken 2 out of 3. And the best news is that they were competitive with the Braves in all 3 games. That was my takeaway from this series. Were the results what we wanted? No. But the Braves are beatable. They are not. They are not invincible. Their bullpen is suspect. And whether it be the Mets or another team, the Braves can definitely be defeated in a short series, because their starting pitching is nothing to write home about either. It's not dominant. It's not going to shut a team down. And look, in the playoffs, you can hit all the home runs you want. I mean, that's why the Dodgers might not be the best bet, because they have an awesome offense, and yes, they have good pitching, but if their pitching isn't on, the team with the best pitching is going to win in the playoffs. That's the way it goes. So, the Braves are although they at least tried to improve their bullpen, making 3 big moves to improve their bullpen, they haven't improved their bullpen. If anything, it's gotten worse. So I find that to be very interesting, and it's something worth keeping an eye on, because the Mets played the Braves 6 more times this year, and all 6 of those games are at Citi Field. So hopefully what will happen in those 6 games is the Mets fans will show up at Citi Field again and be loud and raucous, just like they were with the National Series, because that really did seem to throw the Nationals off this past weekend. So that's the end of the Atlanta trip chitter chatter. Now let's move on to what's coming up ahead with the Kansas City Royals. The Mets have an interleague series with the Royals in Kansas City this weekend. The 7-1 Army will be there tomorrow. I will not be with them, sadly. But it should be a fun series. It's a rematch of the 2015 World Series, of course, which hopefully the results of this one are different and the Mets can sweep. They certainly should be able to sweep. The Mets have a better team than the Royals have. They have a better record than the Royals have, but that's why they play the games. So we'll see if the Mets can stay up as they were yesterday to face lesser competition. It's going to be a challenge, and it's going to have to be handled the same way the Mets handled the Marlins and the White Sox and the Pirates earlier this month. Can they do it? Yes. Will they? We'll see. Good news is the Mets have DeGrom and Syndergaard on the mound, so I think taking anything less than 2 out of 3 from Kansas City is going to be a disappointment. So, and even Zach Wheeler going on Sunday, I think that's another big advantage. Wheeler needs to come back strong after his terrible outing in Atlanta. So that'll wrap it up for today. I'll be back on Monday and talk about the series from the weekend, see what our record is at that point, see what the wild card standings look like then. And for anybody that's getting concerned or worried about the Mets record and the Mets wild card standings, let's not get too crazy concerned yet, because we can see how quickly things can turn. That's the one thing that I keep telling myself, like, don't get caught up in every piece of minutia that's going on inside the games, and the team is not dead by any means for the season. We saw what happened over a 2-week stretch, how the Mets went from an afterthought to one of the top 10 teams on MLB's hot list. So the Mets are hot, and let's hope they can stay hot. And let's hope Mickey Callaway doesn't keep making stupid-ass decisions. That'll wrap it up for today. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Talk with you guys next week. Follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.